Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the School Manager Part 4. In this exclusive training, I'm going to show you how to prevent duplicate student names. We're also going to be creating ID cards with dynamic fields. I've got an update to classes, and in the admin section, we're going to be showing you how to automatically generate and protect passwords, as well as an update to the classes and lessons where we're going to be adding, sorting, deleting, and updating class icons. It's going to be an incredible training. I cannot wait. A ton more. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. Really a fantastic training today. We've got so much to cover. We don't have a lot of time to spare. I'm going to go over this with you. This is the sample. Of course, we're going to be going from scratch. Every line of code, every formula, every mistake, every bug you will see and hopefully learn from. I'm happy to help you here with our Excel for Freelancers YouTube videos each and every week. All I ask that you do is just subscribe. Go ahead and click that notification icon bell. That'll alert you to brand new trainings each and every Tuesday. This workbook is absolutely free. All you need to do is click the links down in the description, either using with your email or Facebook Messenger. We'll get that sent over right to you. Of course, if you do like a pack of these, I've got 175 of my best workbooks all crammed into a single zip file, complete with a whole library. So all you got to do is just single click on the workbook to open it, or single click on the YouTube video to view that. It's a great deal. It's only $66 for a short time, so that'll help us out if you can pick that up. I'd appreciate it. We've got so much to cover in this video. We're going to get started right away. This is the sample file. I'm going to be putting this away, and we're going to be starting right where we left off last week. But basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be able to add an icon to different classes. In the scheduling component, once we build that, we're going to be adding icons to schedule. I've chosen white. I'm not sure if you'll like white, but you can choose any color you want. I'll show you how to create those. No worries on that. So we've got that. We've got a few others. We've got users and security. We'll be protecting passwords as mentioned in the intro. Also in the students, we've got that. I'm gonna update the inactive status since I want a date instead of a field. That's gonna help us out. I'm gonna show you how to prevent from duplicate names. So as soon as we enter something that's automatically, let's say we load this, and then we just change to, let's say, first name Freddie. As soon as we enter that duplicate, we're going to get alerted, and that's exactly what we want here, just like that. So it's going to be, I'm going to show you how we can do that. We're going to program that in. Update classes. I want to show you classes, enroll classes, exams, a whole lot in this ID card. All right, I'm going to close out this sample program. This kind of alerts you to what we got going on and prepares us so that I can do that. All right, we're going to open up last week right where we left off, which is this part 4. This is right where we left off last week. So we've got a lot to cover here. So why don't we get started? The first thing what I want to do is I want to make a quick update on the student. Now we have active here, but what I'd really like to do, instead of just active, inactive, I'd actually like to set a date for that, as you saw in that sample. So we're going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this thing, because I think it's nice. Not only do we know if they're active, but we can know the date that they've been inactive. So that's a little bit more informative. Notice that the group name remains here in the general info group. We need that group name, and I'm going to move that up, and I'm going to create a field right here. And we're just going to call this date inactive. And of course, if the student becomes active again, all you need to do is then just remove the date. So we'll have a date field, and I'm going to drop this down, format them based on our cell styles that we've been working with. This is the field style here. That's the one we've been working with. And of course, I'm going to change this to the label style here. So we've got that. So now we notice the date inactive is now L21. We're going to format that as a date, short date. And then we'll just go ahead and put a date in there. Okay, we do need to make an update to the database, but it's super simple. L21 is where we're going to be located. In the student database, under the active, right, we're going to make this L21, and we can get rid of B23. So back into the students here, L23, we no longer need this, right? We can just get rid of that, drop this down, clear that out. So now, instead of just active, inactive, we have a date. That's going to help us out because we actually have a date. We can then sort and filter based on that date. So it's going to be really a nice feature. So that's now called student active. We'll just call this inactive date now, inactive. And then that's pretty much all we need to do. We'll go ahead and test it out and make sure there's no issues with that, but that's pretty much it. No longer true or false, so we can remove that, clear that date out. It's now going to be a date. So I like that better with some ideas that came up. So we'll just go ahead and update that student, check our database, make sure it's now a date, and it is. Okay, that's what I want to see, a date in there. And then also what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load it into check. So we've got Fred here. David's going to clear it out. We do need to want to clear this out, which is going to be clear. Make sure we clear that out on new, right? On new, we need to update that. L21 we want to clear on new. So when we load back in Fredders, the date loads, which is fine, but I need to, new student, I need to make sure this one is cleared out, L21. So into the developers, Visual Basic we're going to go, and that's going to be focused on the student macros here, student macros. I'm going to bring this up so you can see it. So student, we're focusing on, let's say student miscellaneous here, add new, again, let's see L21, that's the one I want to focus on for you. So let's clear that out, L21, adding that in, anywhere is fine, L21 comma. Okay, so that's going to clear that out and add new, so that's what we want. So if we cancel the new and then just click new student, it's cleared out automatically. Load up a student, that's what I want. Okay, good, so we've got that. That kind of was really easy change. So what I want to do is make sure we covered that. Also, what I want to do is I want to know when we have a duplicate contact. If let's just say I'm at David here, just as I showed you, and then I enter Fredders. Now, Freddie has already been a student, so as soon as I hit that, I want to show, just as that sample showed you, I want to show that this turned red. I want some text here. I want to know that right away that that's a duplicate student. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing we want to do is I want to make sure, I want to know exactly what name should be there. We're going to use the student full name. Let's look in the student database. This is the student full name. I have a named range based on that. So we look in the formulas name manager, student names here, we tab over. So it's student names. So what I want to do is I want to check, is there a duplicate of student names? Now, this is going to be based on a formula. So it's last name, first name, or first name, last name. So what I'd like to do inside our students is actually show what that student name would be. So we don't need this tree anymore. I'll be able to, that's on add new. Let me make sure to get rid of that because we don't need that. Add new, right? We no longer need said new student to active. I'm going to clear that out right now. Okay, good. I saw that. That's important. All right, continuing on here. Let's save the work we've done so far. So what I want to do is going to split this up into two formulas. I need to know what the full name is. What should the full name? Because it's a little bit tricky because it could be either first name, last name, or last name, first name. So what we want to do is we want to see what that is. So let's take a look inside our admin screen here. And also I want to go into the general, let's say application settings here. And I want to look at this here. Last name, first name, or first name, last name. So inside that application, it would be nice if we have a named range for that so we can do that. Let's just call this sort names by. I'm going to create a name range for just this sort names by. That way we can use it inside here. So, okay, we already have it. We already has that as the dynamic name range. So I'm going to remove it because here's what I mean. So I'm going to change this inside the name manager. And I'm going to call sort names by, and I'm going to tab that over. Instead of this here, I'm going to change it to this here. And then I'm going to hit check, and then I'm going to click OK. Now in the data validation, let's go inside the data and data validation. And then all I'm going to do is just make sure that we're here. We're based on these two fields here. Click OK. And then we make sure that we have it. Now when I check sort names by, it's this one. So here, selecting sort names by, this is the field that I want. I want to know the value of this. All we've done is just taken this. We don't need a named range for just based on those two cells, A13 or 14. Again, the data validation based on that is located here at A13 through A14. All I did was update that. So now what I want to do is use this in formulas, sort names by. If sort names by is last name, first name. So I'm going to copy that here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into students here. And then somewhere right around, let's say B17, I want to put a formula in. Let's just call it, I want to call this full name. I want to know that full name based on a formula. What should it be? First name, last name, or last name, first name? So what would that formula be? It's going to be equals if, and then the one we just created, sort names by equals, and then I'm going to paste that in, last name, comma, first name. Then what do I want to do? Then what I want to do is I want to put in this last name, and then quotation marks, comma, space, and then another quotation, and then I want to put in, actually it should be first name, so this should be last name, H7, that's right, H7, last name, comma, first name. So that's what it would be, right? Otherwise, if it's false, what's it going to be? It's going to be first name and quotation marks, a space, and then another and then the last name. So that's what I want. So basically, I want to display this name based on either one. So you see, notice how that happened. All we need to do is just move this menu slightly over. It's moving slightly over to the right a little bit. Now when we move it about, it should be okay. So there we go. Now let's take a look. Okay, good. So basically this is it. So that's the full name, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking for a match in there. And when there's a match, then I'm going to know. But that match is a little bit tricky. Here's why it's tricky. If it's an existing student, we know there's going to be a match, right? So if it's a new student, for example, if I load in Fred Fretters, there's a match here, right? This is going to equal. We know it's already in the database. But if it's new, so we need to differentiate between new students and existing students. And we can do that inside another formula. So right here inside A15, I'm going to put duplicate name. And I want a true or false here. Duplicate name. And then I want a true or false. So here's where I'm going to put in the formula. And what kind of formula do I want? Well, it's going to be two conditions. I need to know, is it new or is it existing? So that's important. Let's move this over a little bit, just the way I am, over a bit to the right. Okay, so is it new or existing? So let's write in some code. And I also want to know, how do we know if it's new or existing? This right here, student row. If this is no match, if there's no match, let's say new student, we know that B7 is going to be blank. So we can use B7 to differentiate between if it's a new student or if it's an existing student, which we just loaded up. So that's a good start. So let's do that. So first of all, we're going to wrap it on if error. So equals if error. And if there's an error, now what I want to do is I want to know if, another if, and then I want to determine, is it a new student? And there's two conditions. And B7, here's B7, is it equal to empty? Equal to empty. And there's another condition. I also want to know if there's a match on the student name. So I want to run if there's a match. So match, but I want to know not only them, if there's no match, it's going to create an error. So what I really want to do is I want to check for an error to see if there's an error inside the match. So is error. If there's an error, then what we're going to do is we're going to run a match. So what are we matching? I'm going to look up right here in B17. Between that, that's what we have, match. And where am I matching it up? Student names. That's the named range that I just showed you. We're looking for an exact match, so it's going to be 0. Then what we want to do is if this equals false, right, that means there's no error. That means there is a match. If there's no match, there's going to be an error. So if that equals false, then we know that there is a match. And if there's a match on a new student, there shouldn't be a match, right? We're putting in a new student. There shouldn't be a match. So if there is, we need to mark this as true. That means there is a duplicate. Otherwise, what other condition? Well, other condition, what if it's an existing student? In that case, also we have to check for that. Again, we're going to use if, and then we're going to use another and. In this case, right, B7 is not going to equal empty, right? B7, 7, because it's an existing student, does not equal empty here. So in that case, B7 does not equal empty. And what other condition? In that case, what I want to do is, how do I know if there's a match? There should be a match. But if there's a match in a different row, you know what I'm saying? So here's what I'm saying. It should be found, but it should be found only in one single row. And that's student row 4. Fred Fretters only belongs in student number 4. But what if it's found, or if there's a match in a different row? If there's a match in a different row, then we know that there's a duplicate, right? So we can use that row to differentiate that. So how would we do that? So okay, in match, what are we matching here? We're going to match, of course, we're matching, looking up whatever's in B17. We're going to match it with the student names here. We want an exact match, so it's going to be 0. Then also we want to look for the row. So +3, we need to locate the row. So we got to add 3 on that. Now that's it. That's it for the and. If that does not equal B7, then we know we've got a match, right? And we don't want a match because it's already a duplicate. It's found somewhere else. So that would be true. Otherwise, it is going to be false. And the quotes, and then if case there's an error, also we want it false, right? If there's an error, that means there's no match was found. Okay, great. Now let's take a look. I also want to update this. Let's go ahead and take a look at our student. Our student database is already sorted by first name, last name. So let's put that and let's keep it right at that based on that. So I'm going to go into admin and then just update it back to first name, last name. Here we go. And then into the students here. So let's go ahead. So now we have David Davis. So what about if I enter Fred and then Fretters? Okay, that's going to go to true, right? Now we know we have a duplicate, right? Because Fred Fretters is already in our list here. So that's what we want, true. So let's put that in yellow. And what do we want? I want to change the conditional formatting here, so let the user know. So conditional formatting, a new rule. Then what we're going to do is going to use it based on a formula. And that formula is going to be based on this, based on what's located in B15. If that equals true, then we want to do something different. We want to highlight that. So how are we going to do that? We'll do that with some formatting. So the first thing what I'll do is I'm going to fill it with this red color. I'm going to change the font to maybe bold, and then we'll go to red. And then I'm going to change the border to red also to make it really stand out, and then go outline. Okay, but that's not enough, and that helps too. So when we load something in, that's good. So notice it loads, and as soon as we change it to Fred and then Fredders, it changes. Good, but I want more than that. I want to let the user know that they have a duplicate. So I'm going to put a little message right down here. I'm going to merge and center this, bring down the font to like 8 or something like that, and then I'm just going to put in duplicate name found, like that, and then we'll put it just kind of small and red, and then I'm going to center it just enough for them to see it, bold it, and make it red. Okay, so that stands out, but I only want to show that if, of course, this is true. So another conditional formatting, a new rule, we'll do the opposite this time. In this case, right, if this is false, this is equal to false, then what I want to do is I want to color it the same as the background color. So a little bit different way to do that. Take that and put it as a background color. Click OK. And click OK. Now, of course, this is a duplicate, but as soon as we load it up, it's going to hide. So there we go. So again, putting in a duplicate, let them know. Now also when we save it, we want to make sure that we don't let them save it. So we should add that. So putting in there, going to automatically let us know the duplicate name has been found, right? It's duplicate name found. And so what we want to do is make sure that they don't save it. So on save or update, if B15 is true, we don't allow it. So let's update that inside VBA. So student save or update. So we have to make sure that the required fields. Let's add something else. If dot range B15 dot value equals true, then message box student name already exists, please make a change. There we go. And then exit sub. So now they cannot save it as long as B15 is going to equal true. So when I try to update that, we're going to get the student name already exists, please make a change. Right? So as soon as we make a change to David Davis, and then we could just change it to David Son, and then it'll allow us update. Clicking update is going to allow us to make that update as long as it's not. All right, cool. That's how we prevent duplicate names. Very cool. What else do we have? You'll notice that when we made the change to this, we need to resort the students. Notice we made the change from first name to last name, but what I really do, if I make a change from last name to first name or first name to last name, I need that reflected everywhere. I need that reflected here, right? And I need it reflected inside the student database. So what we need to do is run the macro that was going to update these names, these full names, as soon as we make a change. So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look at the macro that we want to run. So inside the student miscellaneous here, or student tabs here, we have that already. Add new, down here, sort names, called student sort names. So all I really want to do is run this macro as soon as an admin makes a change to that specific cell inside. So on the change of R4, I want to make that change. So we go inside the developers, and then we make that change. Inside the admin, right, we make a change to R4. So let's do that. So on change, we're focused on a change event, and then if not, intersect, and then R4, if we make any change, R4, then what we want to do is run that macro. Then run that macro. Run student sort names on change. Okay, good. Okay, so let's take a look at that and see how that works. So we got last name, first name. Let's just double click on that. Go into the student database here. Now that's working here. Last name, first name, R4. Great, but we also want to update the formula inside the database. So let's take a look at that. Before we do that, student database here. Now, because we've made the update to the named range. So now, if admin, so now we have sort by. So let's take a look. Sort, because we have to update that. Sort by names equal last name, comma, first name, then C1. Otherwise, student database. Okay, student database B1, B1. Okay, perfect. So now we've got that. Now what I'm going to do is just bring that down. Now we can copy that down to the existing. Want to make sure we copy down to all the existing, paste that formula in. There we go. Okay, we don't have a student name in number 2. Let's just add that in here. Lisa Lopez. Make sure we have enough here. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Now what we want to do, Fredders, Lisa Lopez. So we've got that. and I'll making a change in the admin, making the change there. Now it's going to automatically, and now what we want is to resort this list. So this list, so we automatically here. Now when we make the change here, making the change right here, last name, first name, go back in the student database. Now it's automatically sorted here. Okay, perfect. So we got that. Any change on that, it's going to automatically create our list. It's going to be automatic. Now again, looking down the list, David Davidson, you see it's now last name, first name. Making a change here back to first name, last name. Going back in there is going to, again, first name. All right, that's exactly the way I want it. Perfect. What else do we have? We've got a lot to cover. You see this particular attendance. Attendance can tend to be a long list. And I think that would be better suited inside our reports and dashboards because we could have a very long list. And I think even better than something like attendance, we're going to have lots of attendance lists, but let's keep it in the dashboard. What I think would be more helpful than that is having like a list of classes that are enrolled. So let's change that to enrolled classes. That's going to be more helpful because we kept it open right now. And of course the attendance will run the reports on that. Makes a little more sense. So what do I want for that? So I want the enrolled date, and I also want the class name, and I also want to know who is the teacher, who's the assigned teacher of that class, as well as perhaps when it was completed on, maybe a date that it was completed, and also grade or score on that. That's important. And nextly, we want to have a status. I want to know if they're currently enrolled, and then maybe notes, and then we'll leave the last one blank. Maybe we'll extend notes all the way throughout that. Okay, good. I like that a little bit better. Let's save the work that we've been done so far. So we've got exams. We're going to be getting to ID cards very soon, but I want to jump back into the admin and make some updates and show you what we can do in there because there's a lot of done. So we've run the duplicate that's focused on, and now what we want to do is go into the admin and make a few other updates on that. Notice we have to actually hide some group buttons in the application setting. This group here, application settings group, I want to make sure to hide that. We hadn't done that before. This should be hidden except on application settings. So that's called the app settings group. So let's take care of that right now. Inside, back to the developers, we're going to go to the tabs, admin tabs here. And here we have hiding the admin settings, and here we have showing it. Okay, making sure that does it. That's already there. Good. Had that covered. I wasn't sure if we covered that last time. That's it. If there's any other buttons, we're going to need to hide them as well. And also in users and security, why don't we do this? Let's take care of the passwords. When I enter a password here, let's say 12345, I want to automatically hide that password and put it somewhere else and replace it with just some asterisks so that users can't readily see it. They don't know everybody's password, even if somebody has access to this, maybe a non-admin, they can't see all the passwords. It's a more secure way of storing them. So how are we going to do that? Well, basically when we make a change to here, I want to mask it with the number of characters. I want to take that password, I'm going to hide it somewhere else, somewhere far away. So let's do that. Let's hide that. And so when we do that, so when a user makes a change anywhere from Y all the way down to just say, let's say a large number, I want to make that change. So let's go into the developer and see exactly what we want to do here. So again, inside the admin directly, we're focused on worksheet change. So inside that, focus on a specific range. And I'm going to drop this down a little bit. I'll drop this up until we start formatting and working with that. And inside the VBA here, we're going to drop it down so you can kind of see both. Focused on really Y6 and all the way down. So Y6, if Y6 all the way through perhaps Y100, and we'll extend that if we need to. Okay, is nothing, and I want to make sure that B4 is false. Why do I want to do that? Well, basically what I want to do, here's the problem that we run into, and you're going to run into this problem, and I'm going to show you exactly how to solve it. Okay, so here's what I want to do. When a user makes a change to here, I want something to happen, right? Wait, let's comment that out before we get ahead of ourselves so I can explain it. Okay, let's reset that. So if a user makes a change here, I want something to happen. Here's what I want to happen. I want to take this password, and let's say I want to put it maybe all the way in, let's say DD, right? Let's say call him DD. We can remember that easy. I want to put that actual password and call him DD, and then we're going to hide it. Okay. But so when I want to replace that, I want to take what's in here and I want to replace it with asterisks. So in one instance, user is making an entry here. In another instance, VBA is making the entry. VBA is going to turn it to asterisk. So here's when you start getting crashes in application and loops that never end, is because you're telling VBA to, when a user makes a change from Y6, do something, right? Then let's put in then and if, okay? So when a user makes a change, but we need to differentiate, right? So that way, as soon as VBA makes the change, it's gonna run again. Do you understand that user made a change to Y, it's gonna run. If VBA makes a change, it's gonna run again. So what I wanna do is I wanna differentiate between those two. We need VBA to change those numbers into asterisks. So I wanna differentiate between the change that VBA is gonna make and the way the user is gonna make. So how do we differentiate that? Well, the first thing what I wanna do is I wanna just pick a specific cell. Let's just say B4, and I'm going to make that based on a true or false. So we're going to use that Boolean, right? So let's just call it password here, B4 password change, and then we're going to make this true or false, okay? So we'll set it initially to false. So when a user makes a change, I want this to go to true. And then when we're finished with everything, I'm going to go back to false, okay? So that way, let's say a user makes a change, it goes to true. So we're going to set it to true. So range B4 dot value equals true, and then of course we're going to set it back to false before we exit it. It's going to go to false when we're done. So here we're going to do a bunch of things, and VBA is going to do some things. So what I want to do is I want to check to make sure and range B4 dot value equals false. That way, when VBA is going to make its changes in here, it's not going to loop out. So what kind of change do we want? Well, the first thing what we want to do is we want to make sure that the target value is not empty. So if the target, because I want to differentiate between when a password is being cleared out or when a password is being entered. So if the target dot value does not equal empty, then do something. So we'll put else here. Let's say empty, okay? So we can differentiate because there's two different things I want to do. Here's what we're going to do if it's not empty. Here's what we're going to do if it's empty. We're going to do something in here. Okay, so if it's not empty, then what I want to do, I want to make sure that give the user or let the user know. So if, let's give them an option. Message box, you have set this, let them know user's password to, and then a space, and then we do and then target value. So we let them know what the password is just to show them. And also, then we'll do a period. And then, of course, we can do, is this correct? So is this correct? Just go, okay? That way we know. Okay, comma. Then what I want to do is I want to, there we go. Missing parentheses there. Okay, comma, VB, yes or no. Give them the option, yes or no. And then we'll say password change, okay? So it's going to go from nothing or something, password change. That's the title we're going to give it. Equals VB no. If it's no, then exit the sub, right? But we can do more than that. What if it's not? Then probably we should clear the password. So why don't we do this? Give them two different options, okay? So if VB yes, then do something, right? Else no. Okay, so again, we're going to go inside. So if they do want to change it, if they don't want to change it, I want to clear what they've entered just in case, right? So in case they decide they don't want to change it, I want to clear it out. So let's do that. So else target.clear contents. Here's where VBA is making a change. Notice VBA is making a change already. It's going to continue. It would loop out, but since we set this to true and this we're ensuring it's false, VBA won't go back in until it sets it back to false until we're done at the end, okay? So that's one of the reasons. So assuming that they do want to change the password, what do we want to do? Then range DD and the target, we're going to use the same row, target.row.value equals the target value. Okay, that's going to set the password, set password in column DD. And also what I want to do is I want to take that existing password and I want to turn it to asterisks, but I want to base the number of asterisks based on the number of letters in the password. I think that's kind of convenient. So how do we do that? Target.value equals, what's going to equal? It's going to equal string, and it's going to be based on the length. So the length of the target.value comment. Now, how many, what do we want in that string? How many number? I want to know it based on the length of the target, right? So that's how many. But what character do I want to use? I want to use the asterisk. That is the character. Okay, perfect. So that's it. That's all we need to do to enter the number of asterisks is based on the length of the string. Otherwise, we're just going to clear the contents. Okay, great. That's it. But what if it's cleared? Let's get rid of the space there. But what if it's cleared, right? What if they've actually cleared it? I want to make sure that give them the option to clear it, to make sure. So if, in this case, they've cleared the password, if message box, are you sure you want to clear this password? And then question mark, and then comma, VB also yes or no. and then also give it a title, clear password. Okay, once we have the title, then equals, in this case, VBS, then range, okay, DD, and the target row, and the target dot row dot clear contents. We're clearing the password from DD. And also I want to clear the password from that. So also, what if they don't, else they decided not to, else they don't want it. In that case, the target value equals, again, we're going to do the same thing again here. We just need to copy this. So in this case, basically copy this, paste this in there, but instead of the target value, we're going to use whatever was in DD. So range, whatever the current password is, DD, and again, the target dot row dot value. So basically, if they decided they don't want to change it, do not, let's just, my loop automatically with auto hotkey. Every time I write in do, it writes a new, not clear password. There's a do loop. That's automated with auto hotkey. Okay, so here's the go. They want to clear the password, DD clear the contents, so that's automatically clears that password. Do not clear the password. Target value is you're gonna automate, and we're not changing anything to the existing password. Okay, let's save that work and let's take a look and see how we've done it here. And all right, well, good. B4 equals false. That's right. B4 equals false, clearing out the extra spaces. Okay, good. Let's take a look and see how we are that. So now all I need to do is double click on this, tab out of it. Do we want to set, is this correct? Just put no for fun. Okay, it clears it out. That's what I want. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This time we're going to go with yes. Okay, it brings up an asterisk in column DD all the way over here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. That password's safe all the way over there. We've got the asterisk numbered. Let's change it to 1, 2, 3. Do we want to change the password? Yes. It's going to go to 3 asterisks. That's exactly what I want. Okay, cool. I've just shown you how you can add and enter passwords and hide them accordingly, because we're going to need that. Inside the application, we're going to be using this a lot. Application shared folder. We're going to be using it a lot inside the code and formulas. So it's going to be really important because everything's going to go inside this shared folder. All the attachments, all the icons, all the pictures, you know, all of the everything, right? In independent folders within that. So that's really important. Why don't we go ahead and give that a name? We're going to call it app folder, and we can refer to it inside the code and inside formulas using that. I want to make sure that we do that because we're going to need that. Okay, the next thing what I want to do is I want to make sure that it's every user is going to have their own. So each individual user, this will be a multi-user, will have their own folder. Each time a new user gets an application, which will be a duplicate of this one, they'll need to double check to make sure that it is. Now, these users don't necessarily need to enter it. So we can create this browse, right? I can create this from any different screen and just have them browse for their application folder, and so be it, and that's enough. So how are we going to do that? Let's make sure that it's actually accurate. So inside the admin miscellaneous, we're going to write a few different macros. I want to make sure that it's actually accurate. So we have just one macro right now, but I want to write to make sure that we actually have an accurate folder path. That's very important. Without that application folder, we can't access any of the pictures. Now notice, you know, when you get this, right, when you get this, like there'll be no picture here, but if you have a multi-user scenario, you'll browse for the folder. It'll be a shared folder. You're going to have access to all the attachments regardless of where you are in the world. That's really, really going to be helpful. So I want to write a macro that's going to double check to make sure that that folder exists and it's proper. So we can do that right now. We're going to use that macro and run that many times. Every time we want to put something in that folder, we need to make sure it's accurate. So sub admin app folder check. Okay, so all we need to do is say if directory, and now that we've named it as a name range, we can use that. So we're going to use the bracket app folder. It's a short way of doing it. VB directory, we're going to check VB directory equals empty, then it doesn't exist. Then message box, there's a problem with it. Please make sure to set the correct, and we're going to test this out, correct application folder. Then what we're going to do is we're going to run that macro that's going to do just that to help us out so that they can run that macro regardless of where they are. So what is that? It's that this macro right here. All we need to do is run this macro no matter where they are, and so they can browse for it. Okay, excellent. So that's what I want to run. Let's double check that to make sure that that macro is working. I'm going to run it now, and nothing happened. Good, that's exactly what I want. I'm going to change this spelling of this, making it inaccurate. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to launch that code, run that code one more time, and make sure that we get that prompt. Please make sure to set the correct application folder and browse. It's going to let us browse. Now when I browse from my desktop, it's going to show again, okay, good, and it's going to reset it. It's going to correct that application. That's what I want, because we're going to need to run that consistently every time we need it. Okay, so what I want to do is now I'd like to add some icons. Let's make an update to classes and lessons here. Now previously we've had this, but I want to add on to that. I want to build onto that a little bit. So I think that's really going to help us, because I want to add some icons up to that. Notice we have icons here, an icon name, but I want to add more to that. So how are we going to do that? The other thing I really want to add on to this is a file name. So I'm just going to copy and paste this here. And I want to know the icon name, which is the name that the user can give it. And I also want to know the file, the actual file name. So we're going to call this the file name. We have the icon name. And then what we'll do is, since this is kind of unique and different here, I'm just going to put the dotted lines between here. These are separate. So I'm going to format those cells and go with the dotted line in the center. So this dotted line will be the center throughout. And then we can just go with the border on the top. Okay, so our icons are going to appear here, the icon name and the file name of that icon is going to appear here. Those icons are going to go into a specific folder inside. It'll look something like this inside my desktop here. So I've got it. It's going to look like here, icons here. So I want those icons, something like this, class icons. So notice they're all in white. That's why they're not showing up, but they're there, right? They're just in white, which is fine. Because I'm thinking on the schedule, if I have like a darker color, a white icon might look nice. So they're just in white. So I've got them already in here. I probably should delete them, but I might use them in a minute. So let's clear them out. Let's put them somewhere else on my desktop so that I can bring them in and show you exactly how I'm going to do that. So I'll go ahead and bring this into my desktop, just putting them directly on the desktop. That way we're going to have VBA move them into them. And I think that's going to work a little bit better. Okay, so what I need is I need a button that's going to help us to click add the icon. So why don't we do that now? We've got some buttons here in the students. I can use this button here. Just click on this and I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to bring that over here inside our admin here. I'm going to paste it right in here. Instead, we're just going to call this add icon, and we can shrink it up a little bit. Okay, so instead of 1.2, let's make it 1. There we go. I like that better. And we can end that. Obviously, it's not the macro that we want, the different macro. That's fine. We just need to clear the macro out until we actually assign it. So we're going to backspace that, clearing out the macro while we work with it. We don't need macros assigned to them. Okay, I'm going to make sure they're in the center. I'm going to group them, and I'm going to call this, let's just call this there might be additional buttons that we add in this later. So it's better to call it class button group. So that way we can add additional. So I'm going to do that. Class, let's just call it class group, make it simple, class group. So that way we need to remember to hide this icon when we switch to the different tabs. So adding the icon. So let's write a macro. So what I want to do is I want to add an icon here, the icon. I want to add the icon name here, and I want to add the icon. I also want to sort them alphabetically. It's going to be really cool. And I need to make sure that they're available for every user on the system. So there's a lot of challenges here. I'm going to show you exactly how we do that. Back inside VBA, let's write a macro so we can do that. We've already done the folder check. So let's write a brand new macro here. We're going to call that sub admin browse for icon. And then what we'll do is we'll add dimension. We need a picture file as a file dialog because we're going to be browsing for that file as file dialog. Also, what I want to dimension, I want to know the old path of the picture, and I want to set the new path as a picture, both in strings. So dimension old path as a string and the new path as string. So we want both of those. Also, I need the application folder, right? That folder that we just set, I want that as a string to application folder as string. Now that we have that, we also want to know the icon name. Let's keep on the same row. Icon name as a string, and also the file name. File name as a string. The icon name is the name that you will assign to it. The file name is a name that's going to be inside the file, so we know the difference. Okay, also there, I want to dimension the icon row. I need to know what row we're on as long. Okay, we're going to focus primarily, of course, on the admin sheet, so we can focus with admin sheet. Now, what do we want to do inside the admin? The first thing I want to do is check to make sure that we have an accurate folder. I'm going to copy this, paste that in there. Check for correct. Let's put correct application folder. Each user will have a different one, so we want to make sure that it is accurate. And another thing you can do is, like, if there's, you can also check for a specific, you can put a small text file and see if that file exists in there, just to make absolutely sure, but that's enough for now. Okay, so what is the app folder? The app folder is a string, so let's put that in app folder. Of course, it's going to equal to the dot range. We're already on that, and again, we set the another way to do it, just simply to do app folder as a named range, so it's the value. That's the app folder location, right? Let's double check it. App folder location. So now we don't need to keep checking for it. We know it's accurate because we've already run the macro that's going to do that. Okay, so but what I want to do is I want to put, we're going to have so many different attachments. We're going to have different user pictures. We're going to have file attachments. We're going to have tests and quizzes perhaps. We're going to have certificates. So what I want to do is I want to create a folder just for class icons, something very specific just for class icons. You saw that earlier. So how do we do that? Well, I want to check to see if it exists, and if it doesn't exist, let's make it. So if directory, and then of course we have the app folder, and we have backslash, then what are we looking for? Backslash, something like class icons, that would be the folder name, then another backslash if we need it. Well, we probably don't need it in this case. Then, okay, so that's what we're looking for. Let's go do the backslash. That's what it's going to do. Equals empty. If it equals empty, it doesn't exist, then we need to make it. Then we need to make, if directory, application folder, class icons, if that directory is empty, then we need to make it. So how do we make it or create it? Then mk directory, that's going to make the directory. What do we want to make? And again, all we need to do is just do something like app folder and classes. That's it. App folder, and again, backslash, we just pretty much copy that here. All we need to do is just copy it, copy what we created here. That's it. That's all we're going to do. It's just going to make that folder in case it doesn't exist. So it's going to make directory. Okay, so now that it's going to be made, now what we want to do is we want to set the icon name. We'll just create something, a really simple input box. We don't need a form for something like so simple as that. Icon name, we've already defined it as a string, is going to be equal to the input box. I won't use these very often, but when they're very helpful. Input box, when you want something just simple. Please enter a name, let's say a name for this icon. Icons are going to be great to attach for scheduling, so you can put a little icon next to the little schedule. So I think I showed you last week what it would look like in another sample. This icon, okay, so we want to give it a name, not icon, Randy, icon. Okay, please enter a name for this icon. Now that we have that, let's give it a name for this little input box called icon name. And there we go. So now we've got it. So once we have that into a variable, so we can now set the picture. So let's do that. First of all, if they have an empty, let's check if the icon name equals empty, then exit, give them a way out in case they decide to cancel. Exit sub. Okay, we can exit it if they haven't entered anything. So now what I want to do is I want to set that picture file. I want to browse for it. So how do we do that? Set the picture files equal to the application dot file dialog, and then of course we're going to be MSO. We want a file picker, right? We're looking at a file picker. Okay, so now we've actually done this. Let's just write it up here. So we've actually done it inside the student macro, student miscellaneous. We've browsed for that. Let's just copy what we have done there, make it a little bit fair. When we browse for the student picture, remember we wrote all that, this one here. Let's do that with picture file. Let's just copy that, make it a little quicker, close this out, and then we'll add it in right here. So with, now we can just make some updates accordingly. So now that we've copied that there, so let's bring this out and make sure we end the with. So continue on, we'll add that at student show. We don't need that, so we can just change that to end with. Okay, so because we have the picture set up here, so end with, not with. There's no S in there. Okay, so end with. Now what we want to do is make some, so obviously it's not going to be select an icon. The filters is going to be the same. We can keep that the same. If show no selection, let's put no selections already down here. That's good. We don't need the end with for the sheet. That's correct. So now obviously we're not going to need that part. That's just for students, so we can clear that out. The picture path, we've got that already, making sure that we've dimensioned that here. That's called icon name. We also have the old path. So really old path is what we want. So I'm going to call this old path. Old path is the selected items. So that's it, end with. So now that we have the old path, we can move on. Continuing on with that. So what is the new path? Let's define the new path. New path is going to be equal to, again, the app folder. We've already defined this name range. And again, class icons, we can put that in there. and the class icons, backslash again, in quotes. And what else? I want to use the name, the file name, right? So how do we get just that file name? The directory of the old path, and then VB directory. I just want that file name. That's all it is, along with the extension. That's it. That's all I want. So that's going to help us out. That's going to get us the file. So it's going to give us that new path. Now all I need to do is set the file name on that. What is the file name? The file name is going to be the directory of the old path. Actually, what we can do is we can set that up here, make it easier. I'm going to do that here. Let's do that up here. File name, okay, so file name is going to basically be this here. Copy this, paste it here. File name is equal to the directory of the old path. So that's just going to get us the file name. Now all we need to do is copy this and place it right in here so we know it. So there we go. So now we've got that here. Get rid of that space. We don't need the end of that parentheses. That's not necessary. Okay, so there we go. So we've got the file name. We've got the new path. Now all we need to do is make that copy. How do we copy that? We just use file, copy. Now when we use file, copy, all we need to do, again, is all we need is the source and the destination as a string. So what is the source of that? Source is the old path. And what is the destination? It is called the new path. So that we just copy that picture, copy picture from existing location to new location. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have that, now that we've copied it, I want to know what the icon row. I want to put that icon in the first available row. I want to put the name and I want to put the file name. I've got everything I need now. I just need to place that directly in there. So let's get the first available row. So let's call that icon row is equal to, and let's just use, we focused on, of course, column. Let's use AQ because I want to know the last row with the value plus 1. So the first available row, we're going to use column AQ for that. So AQ, we don't need 9, we don't need something that big. 99 is enough. And XL row plus 1, which will give us the first available row. Now we're ready to insert. Now we want to insert that icon. So how do we do that? Dot pictures. It won't come up on IntelliSense. Dot insert. What are we inserting? I'm inserting that file name, right? We could use either the new path or the old path. Either one would work just fine because now it's existing in both locations. We're going to use the new path. So insert new path. And there we go. So now, but I want to name it right away. So how do I do that? So we can simply just put in dot name is going to be equal to, and then give it a distinct name, icon underscore, and I also want to give it a distinct name, and then end quotes, and the file name. Remember the file name. There we go. That's going to give us a very distinct name. So, and then we can work with them, group them together because they all contain this icon underscore. That's how we can differentiate between that and every other picture or shape on the sheet. Okay, so now that we have that, we can then set the icon name and set the file name. So where's that icon name going to go? That icon name is going to go inside AQ, that file name is going to go inside AR, and that picture icon is going to go inside AP. So let's add that in right now. So dot range AQ, and the icon row dot value is equal to the icon name. It's going to set icon name. Okay, so we can just copy that and paste it and make the update. So instead of AQ, it's actually going to be AR. So AR and the icon row is going to be not the icon name, but in this case, the file name, right? The file name, we want that to go in there. So set the file name. So now we have the file name and icon. Now all we need to do is place that icon accordingly and size it directly inside that small little cell there. So how do we do that? We're going to focus directly on that picture. Now we've inserted it, but we haven't sized it or done anything with it. So now that we've named it accordingly, we can then, of course, work with it. So with dot shapes, what's the name? It's this name right here. With that, that's what we're working with. So with shapes, the file name, what do we want to do with that? Well, I want to set the left position. First, I want to lock the aspect ratio. So lock aspect ratio equals MSOC true. I want to lock that in to make sure that we have that. Okay, next up, after we've locked it, I want to set the left position. So what is the left position of that? Left position is going to be equal. Again, I want to call it the admin sheet because we're inside the shape. So I have to call that sheet again. Dot range. What range is going to be located based on AP? We want it located AP and what? The icon row. Dot left, and maybe we'll add a little bit in the center, say +4. I don't want it right on the edge there. I want it in the middle, +4. And I also want to set the top position. Where is that going to be located? Also, it's going to be based on AP, but not top. It's going to be based on the top of AP in the icon row. This time it's the top, but not right on the top. Let's put it a little bit down, called +1. I want to set the height specifically, dot height, because I can't go higher than that, equals 16. Now, of course, since we've already locked the aspects ratio, it's going to automatically set the width too. Dot visible, make sure it's visible, equals MSO true. Okay, that's going to set our icon. Okay, perfect. And width. All right, that's it for that part. So what else do we have on there? So obviously I'm going to run a macro. I want to sort those icons, and if there's no selection here. So all right, so I'm going to run some macro called sort, but we're not going to write that. I'm going to write that admin and then sort icons, but that macro is not going to contain anything just yet. We have to write it first, obviously. So sub admin sort icons. Okay, we're going to get to that in just a moment, but let's add the icon and see if we're working. Again, always before running your macro, save the work we have. Okay, now let's go ahead and add that macro. So another way to do it, we can just simply assign that macro to the button, copy that, right click on here, click assign macro, paste that in and assign that. So let's check for any issues. Sub function app folder, obviously we need the equals there, missed that. Okay, continuing on, and then sub function again, set not cert, okay, set, okay, no R in there. Cert, again, path file access there, let's check on that. Forgot VB directory, or we have to check for that directory. Obviously we have to make sure it's there. Okay, click OK, reset that, and now we'll click add icon. Okay, it's asking for the name. Let's just call it English class, click OK, and now what we'll do is browse for an icon. And I remember I put some on my desktop here, so let's take a look at my busy desktop and pull up the English. Okay, we have English here. Click OK, and now we've got it there. Okay, great. So the icon's placed there, but we can't see it because it's white. I kind of like them white. So what I should really do is color this background pretty darker, and that's gonna, so we can at least see it. All right, that's good. It's kind of, there we go. So now we can see it, and that's much better. A little bit too dark there, but you get the idea. You can of course put any color you want. I kind of like white, so I might change this to a little bit darker so we can see it, but it's there and we can see it, and that's all that's important. On the scheduling, where it's really important, it's going to show up. Great, so we've got the icon name, we've got the file name. Let's add another one. Okay, let's put in math and click OK, and then what we'll do is we'll just add this in here, math here, click OK. And perfect. Now let's take a look at our folder and make sure that they copied over right. Here's our class. Here's the two. Remember, I removed them. So it's bringing them, copying them from my desktop into that, which is good. That's just, I probably shouldn't have used white for the training, but you guys get the point. It'll look really good on the schedule though. I really will. All right, so good. So now, but what I really want to do is I want to sort these based on their titles. So let's add some more a little bit here. History. And so, because we're going to be sorting them, I want to sort them based on their name because we're going to be using them. So history, and then I guess we'll do one more for computer. Add icon and call it computer. If you have a computer class, that's always helpful. And then we'll add them. Good. So we have a selection of icons, a little bit hard to see since I've used white, but that's okay. We get the point. So they're all here. You can zoom in. You can see them. Here they are. And so I want to sort them based on their name. Why do I want to do that? Because when we do a drop-down list, when we're adding classes and I do a drop-down list, I want to see those icons and I want to see the alphabetically so they're easier to locate. So I'd like to sort them alphabetically. And that's kind of a nice challenge. Like, how do we, so obviously we know it's pretty easy to sort the names, but how do we sort the icons? Well, that's going to be really cool. Why don't I show you that right now? Let's go back into the VBA and write that macro that we just started. We have a names on, it's called admin sort icons. And we're going to be, every time we add a new one, we're going to be sorting it out. So let's do that. How are we going to do that? So first thing, what I want to do is I need to know the last row, right? If we're going to be sorting them, we need to understand what's the last row. So dimension, the last row as long, and also the icon row as long, icon row as long, and also the icon shape. We're going to be working with the icon shape. So dimension the icon shape as a shape, and of course the file name, dimension the file name as string. And also we have, I also want the shape group. I want to group them, right? It's very important that we group everything together because when we switch tabs, it's going to be all over the place. So I need to group them. So we should add a group to that. So dimension the shape, it's called shape group as a variant, and we're going to be needing to use an array with that. And also dimension the shape array, dimension the shape array, we'll mark this as an array as a string here. And also, let's say a class group is an object. Dimension, we might need that class group as an object in case we need to work with that. Okay, So first of all, again, we're focused on the admin. So let me bring this up so you can see it a little bit more. We don't need those right now. So with, of course, with the admin sheet, we're going to be working primarily in there. Dot shapes. If there's a class group, I want to ungroup it, right? If there's any group. So the idea is to sort them and group them all together, including this icon. Once it's grouped together, right? If I switch to another admin or tab, I want to make sure I hide the entire group. So I want to make sure, but if it's grouped, I can't work with them unless I ungroup them. So first we want to ungroup them. I guess I shouldn't have used white, huh? Oh well, you get the point. But it will look good on the schedule. All right, so shapes, first thing I want to do is class group and then dot ungroup. Theoretically, that could cause an error if it doesn't exist or it's not grouped. So let's write some on error resume next and then on error go to 0 down here. And then because just in case that group doesn't exist or not group, it would cause an error. So now that we've wrapped that, I do want to get the last row of those icons. So it's going to be equal. We'll use, in this case, AQ. And then AQ, instead of 99, we'll just use AQ 999. Because I want to know the last row. Based on, of course, AQ is the icon name. So just to 99 is sufficient enough for us. That's the last row. So we're going to need that because I need to sort them. So with, we're going to focus on with sort now, or dot sort. Inside that, what do we want to do? I want to, first of all, I'm going to clear the sort field. So sort fields dot clear, clearing any sorts that are there. Next up, what I want to do is I want to set the keys. So sort fields. In this case, I'm going to add the key. What is that key going to be? It's going to be the admin. Remember, we need to specify the sheet again because we're inside with sort. So admin range, in this case, AQ9. I want to base it on the icon name. So AQ, which is going to be the first one, 9. Okay, that's going to be our first range. Then what I want to do, I want to sort on, in this case, sort on equals XL values. XL sort on values. And I also want the order. What is the order? It's going to be ascending. Order equals XL ascending. Great. And also the data option. What is the data option? I want that to be, let's put it in, data option equals, I want to make sure that that's going to be normal. XL sort normal. Okay, let's double check that. Sort, not con, sort on, right? Sort on values. We're going to be doing that. And we want also the order to be ascending and also the data option to be XL sort normal. Okay, so now what we want to do is we need to set the range. So set the range. What's that range going to be again? Admin, we need to specify the sheet. Range is going to be all the way from AQ9, starting there, all the way to AR and the last row. And the last row, relatively easy to sort the values, but how do we sort the icons? And then the last thing is we're just going to apply that, okay? Once we apply that, that's it. That's all we need to do with as far as the sort's concerned, at least the names. But now what we've got to do is we've got to sort those icons, right? Now all this is sorted alphabetically, but these icons need to go along with them. So how do we do that? Okay, so let's continue on inside the code and focus on that. So I'm going to run a loop in this. So for the icon, starting in row 9, icon row is going to equal 9 to the last row. And then we're going to go next icon row. Make sure we close that loop before we move on. Set the file name. What is that file name? File name is going to be equal whatever's in AR. Equals, and then dot range. Since we're out, remember we're outside of this with, so we can then again refer, we've already referring inside this admin sheet. So now we're back out of that. So the range is going to be AR and of course the icon row and the icon row. That's going to give us our file name. We need that. We know the file path, but we need the file name. Okay, so now once we have the file name, I want to make sure that it doesn't equal empty. So if file name does not equal empty, right? We can use double quotes here. Then what I want to do is I want to make sure to reset the top position. Okay, how do we do that? Then dot shapes, icon, we know the icon, underscore, that's the name of it. And right, the file name, remember we set each one distinct, file name dot top. The top position is going to be equal to what? Whatever that icon row is. Dot range AP, that's where icons go, AP, and the icon row, the top position of that icon row, not the value, but the top position of that row, top position, plus, maybe not exactly on the top, maybe +1, just a little bit over. Okay, great. So that's all we need to do to resort those icons. Okay, so what else? Next, I want to group them, but let's make sure that works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this And let's take a look at that. Okay, the computer, let's zoom in so you guys can see those icons properly. Computer, English, history, and math. Now they're all set up properly. Now they are. Okay, good. The icons look a little bit big, but they're okay for now. They get the point. And obviously we can change this in the conditional formatting. Maybe we should do that. If I'm going to use white icons, let's do that. I'm going to go into the home, conditional formatting, manage rules, and I'm not going to extend it all the way to AQ. I'm just going to extend it all the way to, let's say, AO. So we're going to change that to AO, click apply, and click OK. All right, and now we have some conditional formatting here. Go into there, home, conditional formatting, manage rules, and then we have AR. We can just delete this rule entirely, click OK. Okay, so now what we can do is add in, now we can at least see them a little bit. Now I'm going to add some new conditional formatting a little bit darker. New rule equals mod, that's going to automate auto hotkey. It allows, I'm going to give it a format and darker color so we can see the icons a little bit better. Click OK. And click OK, and I think you need to extend that to 27 there. So there's one more row, manage it all the way to not 26 but 27. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. Now we can see the icons a little bit better. There we go. Okay, it kind of gives us a different look too. All right, so we've got the icons there. Now all we need to do is I want to take all these icons here, I want to put them together, and I want to group them along with this icon here, because that we need to work with that group. Did I group that? Let me just double check. No, we should group that here. Let's add that. I'm going to call that something here. We'll call that the add icon button. So I'm going to group it here, call this the add icon button. Good. So we've got that. So I want to take this add icon, I want to group it with everything else. So how are we going to do that? So let's write a little bit of code to go with that. So we're still now we've sorted everything. So now what I want to do is I want to work with all the shapes. So for each icon shape, which is already defined as a shape, in dot shapes, right? That means all of the shapes inside the entire sheet. So, but obviously not everyone, but only those that have distinct factors, which start with icon underscore. So next icon shape, close our loop, and now we can work with it. So I want to check. So if I want to check, I only want to work with those that start with a distinct, that contain that icon and underscore. So if in string, and then what are we looking for? Icon shape dot name. So we're looking inside this name. And what are we looking for? I'm looking for this icon underscore. If it contains that, is greater than 0, if it's found that somewhere in there, then I want to do it. Then what do I want to do? I want to add it to a shape group. So then the shape group equals, in case there's any there, equals shape group, and again, what else? The icon shape dot name. I want to add the name of it, and then I want to add a comma after that, because I'm going to need to separate all of them by a comma. That's going to be our delimiter. And that's it. That's all. So I'm going to basically take all of them and group them and at least put them in a single string separated by a comma. So every single shape, all 4 of these shapes are going to have that. So it's going to be, and then actually I'll show you what that might look like. Let's take a look at what that might look like so we can see it. So message box, and then call this icon, let's call it shape group, so we can see that. Now we're going to run this macro. We don't need to stop there. Run the macro, and let's take a look. So this is what I'm looking for right here. Icon English, comma, icon math PNG, icon. So everything's separated by that comma. That's exactly what I want. Now I can work with it as a group and group it together. So, but I also want to add one more. I want to add this add icon button to this. So let's add that on right now. I want to add that to the string there. So the shape group is equal to the shape group, whatever is existing, and what else? We already got the comma at the end, right? We've already got the comma. So since I've already got a comma, all I need to do is just add in the class group or in the icon button. So add icon button. Double check that name. I want to make sure the add icon, here it is up the top, add icon button. Okay, so now we've got everything together, just what we need. So now I want to focus on it. So how are we going to do that? Now the shape, let's split that. I want to take this and I want to split it and put it into an array. So we can do that with this. Shape array is equal to split. I'm going to split that. What am I splitting? I'm splitting the shape group. And what am I splitting it by? What's that delimiter? It's going to be that comma. So that's the delimiter. So once I've split that, I can work with it. So now with dot shapes dot range, the shape array dot group, I can group them together. And now I can give it a name. Dot name. What is that name? I'm going to call it the class group equals class group. That's the same the one that we ungrouped up above, class group. Also, I don't want to set the placement, but move but don't size. So remember, we don't want it to size with cells. So equals, let's call it move but don't size. We don't want it size. So that end width. So that's all we want. Perfect. Let's double check that. Clear out the extra spaces. Save our work and clear out these spaces. Okay. Good. That's looking good. Let's take a look at, let's run that, and then we'll go ahead and run it. So admin sort icons. Actually, why don't we add a new one, because this macro is going to run automatically. Let's add a new one. I think we have another one called chemistry. So let's add in chemistry. Chemistry. Okay, and we've got an icon for that already on my desktop here somewhere. Here, chemistry. Click OK. Okay, perfect. So let's take a look. It sorted it. Chemistry is now first, and math is last. Perfect. All the icons line up accordingly, and make sure it is now grouped. It is now grouped everything in a group called class group. It's exactly what I want. And last thing I want to make sure is that it's move but don't size. Size and properties. Double check on the properties. Move but don't size with cells. That's the placement that we ordered. Excellent. Okay, now we've added the icons. Very, very good. Only one other thing is I want to make a little note for you and for me here at the bottom of this here. I'm just going to put in a note in capital letters, update shared, let's say, folder data when resorting. And what does that mean? That means when it's been resorted, I want to update all the users in their data so that they all have the new order, so that they get this information. So for each change that we make, we want to update every user and have them. They'll update. Just basically, they're going to run the macro too. We want to let them know to also run the same macro and add in any data that they want. Any new data they must add in and resort. So everybody has the exact same list. Everybody has the exact same icons in the exact same order. Okay, so now what we want to do is I want to make sure that we hide this class group when we switch the tabs. So let's add this to the list inside the macro. So inside the macro, again, admin tabs here. So now what I want to do is just copy this, hide all, and then change it. Of course, we have now class group, and make sure that this is visible when class group is available. So app settings, so class and lesson here, dot visible equals MSO true, see true. Okay. Great. So now when we switch tabs here, it's hidden and it's shown. Okay, great. I wanted to make another update to this one. I want to make, because I've got some ideas for this that I'm going to add inside the scheduling and settings. I want to add additional terms. So basically I want a term. So why don't we do that? We've got some space here. So I'm going to add the interval down here. We'll call this scheduling. I'm going to put that here. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to put these all the way up here, schedule classes. Just bring that, since we haven't done any programming with this, we're still in this phase where we can move things around a little bit, which is kind of nice. Okay, and then we can just click OK on that. And we get, I guess we got some merge cells here. Let's unmerge those in case there's any, nope, no merge cells. This one is merged, so we'll unmerge that one while we're moving it up. And then bring it up here. I'm going to bring it, we can zoom out now. We don't need that. So zoomed in. Bring it up here. That's where I want to put it. Let's put it here for now. I'm going to bring this down here and bring it up here. School days here. We don't need that. And bring it here. I'll also add this table down a little bit below here. Okay, good. I like that. So that's we have the school days here, Monday through Friday, scheduled class days. We don't need this here. We don't need this one actually here. We can bring it up. We can save a little space. I'm going to bring that table down one notch there. And then we're going to add to that table again. So we've got here, bringing it down maybe 2, just to give ourselves enough space here. And let's take a look at that. Okay, good. So what do I want to add? Well, I'm going to bring this forward a little bit, just 2 spots here. And I want to add something on it, maybe even one more, actually, one more here. So I'm going to add in something called terms, right? I want to know what terms, like if I want to assign a term to a class, maybe it's summer, fall, or whatever specific year, I want to make sure that we can do it. So that way we can assign a specific term to a specific class, and that it's going to be easy to automate those dates. So let's do that now. So we're going to call it terms, and we're going to call it from date to date. Okay, great. So let's maximize that. That's what I want there. So school days, we don't necessarily need, let's just call it, that's enough. We got one header enough for that. We can get rid of this and we can get rid of this, everything else. Okay, I like that. That cleans up. So now we've got terms now. We can schedule, we can unmerge that, clear it out there. Another way to clear it out, just bring that down, hide it. And then good. So scheduling interviews, we're going to bring it all the way down here. Let's put a border around just the left side here and make it gray. Okay, format those cells, add in the border there. Good. So basically what I want to do is when we're scheduling classes, we can then bring in those terms accordingly. And it's going to be a lot easier to schedule because all we need to do is to set a term and then automatically the dates will automatically fill in. So it can be really easy to set terms. And we can also then run reports based on those terms. If we want a specific run a report, we want to know how much income we got on a per term basis, we now have a list of terms to do just that. Okay, scheduling interval here. I thought I set that border here. Apparently not. Let's do it. See, it is here. So it's in here, but it's hidden. Why is it hidden? It's hidden. So unselect it, select it again, click OK. There it is. All right, let's unmerge these cells and then scheduling interval, set that up. Good, we've got that here. Let's go ahead and bring this down again, set those borders just the way that I like them. There we go. Now we're good to go. Okay, so we've got scheduling section. I'll bring this over here and make it look a little bit more professional. And good, we got that. Now what else do we want? I want to make sure that we've got, so actually what else do I want? Let's merge and center this, bring it out here just as we do everything else. Okay, good. So inside application settings, notice I've got a little bit of a date. These things, currency is a large column, and notice it doesn't fit here. So really what would look good is if I put the currency basically on the right side. So let me switch that. So I want to bring the currency down here, and I want to put the format, the percentage format up here, and the currency down here. That looks a little bit better because it's a larger column. It lines up a little bit better. I like that better. Okay, good. So we've got the two smaller ones and the larger ones. Now we've got a drop-down list that's going to help us. Okay, good. So what else do we need? We've got, I want to work on the IDs, student IDs. Let's take a look at that. It'd be great to have that feature and add in those ID cards. So how do I want to add those in? Well, what I want to do is I want to have the ability for users or admins to actually select the specific columns that they want, right? So let's add in some more information. I wanted to select information that they might want on a specific ID card. So first of all, I want to know what type of, how are we going to display those fields. So I'm going to put in display fields, and I want to know the label in case there's a label, field label, like maybe you want to have first name or last name or something like that. And I want to put the field value. What is the value of the field? Then I want to also have a preview of ID card. So ID card preview here. And then I'm going to merge and center this one. That's going to extend all the way over. And then we're just going to format that as our subtitle here. So that's going to be in the cell styles and our table header style here. Okay, that's just the way I like it. But what I want to do is I want to bring this all the way down here and have this more of a table with conditional formatting here. So adding in conditional formatting, a new rule. And then I'll use just, again, even rows here. So we'll add in that formula mod here. And then I'll just put in a light color here and click OK because we're going to be editing those fields. Then I'm going to click OK here, and then I'm going to add this to white. So I'm going to make these actually white because they're all editable fields. I want to make sure the user knows it. Format those cells. Right click, sorry, it's off the screen. And then I'm going to put the dotted line in the middle because they're all together. Okay, so the idea is this. I want to select from a drop-down list. I want to know whether we're going to be displaying the field label and the value or just the value. Sometimes we only want to display the value. So how do we do that? Well, we do that with some data validation. And I want to put 3 different options in that data validation. So I'm going to select all those cells here, highlighting them. I'm going to go into data validation. Data validation, I'm going to put in 3 hardcode, 3 different options under a list. The first is going to be none, meaning you don't want to show anything in there. The second is going to be labels. Let's say we want, let's move that, labels and the values. We want to show both labels and the values. And what is the last one? I also want, or maybe it's values only, no labels. So values only. Every time I hit this, only. Somebody's going to tell me how to figure that out, how to get rid of that. Okay, values only. I think F2 would work that fine. Okay, so none, labels and values, or values only. Clicking OK. All right. So that we got. So now we've got the drop down. So when we have a label, we can show none. We can show the labels and values, or of course we can show the values only. So what are those labels here? Well, the first thing what I want is probably going to be putting the picture. I want to put that student picture, the availability, and of course the value of that will go here. So I also want the first name, right? We want the first name, the last name, basically most of the student features, first name, last name. We also want I want a full name. Maybe we want the full student name, full name, and all the student ID number, and also I want the student ID barcode. So maybe you want the student ID to show the number, but you may also want a student ID and then just put barcode. Maybe we only want the barcode here. And also after that, we maybe want the level or the grade, the grade of the student to show that, what grade, and also maybe the birth date. Maybe we want to show that birth date, as well as the address, city, state, and the zip code. Have all those, and maybe the admission date. So that's it. So what I want to do is I now want to link these to the actual values of that student, and we'll just put in, I'm going to copy this and just paste that down here, paste those values in here, so we have values only, and then we can change them accordingly. So basically what I want to do is I want to link them to these individual cells. When we call up a student, let's call up somebody with some actual data. Don't we have any data for any of these people? Okay, city, let's put in some data here, Los Angeles, so we can see that state, California, 900-232, birth date, let's see, 1/15, 2000. Okay, so we've got the birth date. I'm going to put in a grade level, put in fourth. Think that we need a drop down list. We have a named range for grade or level. We should probably do that at some point. Let's do that now before we forget. So, okay, let's go in and add that in there, that grade and level. The admin here, inside the grade and level, here's our grades and levels here. This is what I want. I don't believe we created a name range. So let's do that right now and call it, that's a year level, grade or level, same thing. We have to call them the same. So the only reason I didn't call it grade level here is because we have grades and scores here. It's kind of confusing. In the US, a grade can mean A, B, or C, or a grade can mean first, second, and third. Kind of confusing English, so I know that's why we put year level. Maybe I'll change it in the year. So let's create a drop-down list, so because I don't want to get confused on those. English can be very confusing. Data. Let's go in formulas, name manager, and create an dynamic name range. So new. Wait, let me just double check to make sure we didn't have any. No, we don't have one. New, and then we're just going to call it year or level. Year. Let's call year underscore level. Make it easy. I don't want to mix up grades. Grades we're going to keep for grades and scores. Year or level. And then we're going to use offset here. Offset. And what are we offsetting? I'm going to offset the first one is going to be admin BN. Then we're going to, I'm just going to copy that there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 3 commas. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to count A. Want to know all the text. Paste that in. 1 column. Tab out. Tab in. There we go. I'm going to copy this, the year level, and I'm going to click OK. There we go. Click OK, close. Now back into the students. Now what I want to do, I'm going to change this to, let's call this year or level, make it consistent. And then the data validation here, inside the data and the data validation, then we can do list, and then we can paste in a year level. Click OK. Okay, that makes more sense. So now we have it. So that's what I want, year level. I forgot to put equals in there. Data validation here. Equals, not year level, equals. Okay, good. Now we've got that. So now it's the year level. Okay, so whatever I want there, the email, I probably don't want that on an ID card, phone, parent, no, admission date, maybe we won't put that. I'm not sure. Tuition fee. So we've got birth date. Okay, good. So let's format that as a short date inside here. And perfect. Okay, left justify this and this here. So basically what I want to do is I want to do that. So let's make it a little bit easier on this. I'm going to unhide these rows here, and then I'm going to hide some of them. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide this all the way through this, because we're not focused on that. So because that way we want to see both. I'm going to hide those just temporarily so we can see both at the same time. I'm going to bring this up here. So basically what I want to do is I want to link the picture. Where is that? That's located, I believe, in K19. K19 is here. K19 is our file path. If we add a picture, let's take a look at that. That's what I want. There's nothing there now. I'm going to add a picture to that. Anything, just anything here. Just want to add any picture here. Okay, so that's it. That's what I want. I want a picture there, and I want that link. Now let's put a space there so we can get rid of that bleed over. So I want that picture to show right there. First name is going to be equal to whatever the first name is. Our last name equal whatever. See, it's easier if we can do both at the same time. The full name is going to be equal whatever's probably here in the select student here. That's their full name. We could also use the full name located in B17 too. That might help. And actually, let's make it B17 because that's dynamic based on a formula. It's a little bit quicker. So that way, as they're entering it, it'll automatically show up. The student ID, that's going to be based on J here, 7. Then also we have our student ID barcode. So it's going to be the same also in J7. So it's going to be equal again, but it's going to be, we're going to use a different font on that. I'm going to use a barcode font on that to display it. The level or grade, that's going to be located right here into F15, and the birth date here is going to be equal to J here, 9. Okay, so we also want the address And here, so it's much easier to link it to the city here, state. We're almost done here with that, and then the zip code. So once we only need to do this once, and they're always going to be linked. Zip code's going to be here, and then the admission rate is going to be located down here into BF23. It looks like, or 2019. Okay, so we got that F19. All right, so now we've got all the values. Let's just left justify. So basically the idea is to display these values inside the ID card based on whatever the user has decided. So let's decide. I want to put in that ID card now. I want to put at least a sample of it here. All right, well, I'd like to have both the front and the back of the ID card displayed here so we can have both of those. So let's do that. ID card front, we're going to call it, and it's going to be width, so let's probably span it, let's say 3 rows here, and then I'll give it that, probably that color here that we've been working with, and then I'll make it italicized. Okay, so I'm going to put that right in here. Let's say I don't know how far down, so for now we'll just go with all white, and then I'm going to space these out. I think we need a little more space, so probably going to do them all equally, right about probably 15.5 or so, like that. That's going to be, let's go ahead and right click, and then column width, I want to do it 15.5, yeah, somewhere about that, given that white. So I'm going to put the ID cards right in here, and I want to start out with just some rounded, or let's say rounded corner rectangle here. Probably, let's go insert, I'm going to shapes, and then I want, there we go, probably like that, something like that. Let's format that, something around, let's say 1.76, and then maybe the width of 3.4, a little bit bigger, 3.44. Okay, good, I like that, and we'll center that there. So that's going to be our, we'll bring those corners in a little bit. I don't want them that rounded. That's going to be our ID card, the front of it. So we will put a border around it, something like our color here, and then we don't want, let's say actually shape outline, this color here, and then the text color is not going to be anything. Shape fill, we'll put that in as white or nothing, either one will be okay. And okay, so that's good for the front. And then what I want to do is I'm going to duplicate that, Control D, and this is going to be our back. So I'm going to bring this down and put those pretty close together, because what they'll do is they'll just fold over them, or they'll cut them, and I'm going to center both of those. Okay, good. So this one's going to be our ID card back here. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it right here, and we're going to call this the ID back. Okay, very nice. Let's put this border back where it belongs under the format cells, and then in the border, I'll put that border down there. Okay, so we've got the ID card back in the front. Let's label this back, which is where it belongs, so we can differentiate between two, and we can have 2 different ones. All right, so now that we have that, I'm going to put the borders around, keep the borders around these 2 so we can differentiate, but I don't want any borders inside that, because I want to be able to print that range of cells there. So I'm just going to do the brown border all the way around here, but I want to keep these borders separate. So inside this, I'm going to add a little bit more so we can give it just a little bit more look. And I'm going to insert, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a 2-sided rounded here. So we're going to call this the round same side rectangle here. And I'm going to make it about the same here. And then what we'll do is we're going to zoom in. In this case, I want the same type here. There, we give it that same look here, a little bit more rounded, so we get the same exact round like that. That's what I want. And then also I'm going to extend it out just as we have it, the same width here. And then the same, of course, shape. Actually, we can do the shape fill of this, and we can do no outline on this, no outline. Okay, that looks good. So we're going to call that Excel. Let's call it Excel University. And then just going to center that, bold it, make it look proper. And then, okay, good. So I'm going to do the same thing on the back side. Zoom out. Let's bring it up a little bit. And then I'm going to duplicate that, bring it down here. This one, so the front and back are going to have the same. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to have an ID picture and a bunch of fields in there. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to actually create so many fields. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time. So what we can do is we can have VBA take care of that for us. They can create those fields automatically for us. All we need to do is write a little bit of code, and then of course manually we can space those out accordingly. Once we space those, so here's the challenge. Once I space them out, okay, everything's great. I got a nice ID card, but here's the challenge and here's the issue. And of course, we always have solutions for you too. So let's say I get everything exactly right in this ID card, and then I share this application with all of the users, and then I decide I want to make a change. I want to, move something. I want to hide something. And then, but how do I make that change for all the users? If I decide I want to move the first name down a little bit, I want that to be for every user. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that so that the changes by one user will make changes for all the users, even if it's just a slight change in location of a field. Very cool, very powerful. So we're going to get to that. But the first thing what I want to do is determine, I want to put a picture in here. I want to put all these fields in here based on this. So let's just say, maybe we'll put label and value for student ID, and then the birth date. Maybe that's going to help, label. Address, we don't need the labels. Admission date, we'll put a label in. So that means this admission date and this value is going to both be shown, whereas in the values, only the word zip is not going to show up, only the actual zip code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a macro that's going to loop through all this and add those fields. But to do that, we need to really basically create a sample. I just want a sample field just the way we like it. So let's do that. I'm going to insert a shape. I'm going to call it a text shape, but I'm just going to put it right here. And then I'm going to format this exactly how I like it, especially. So I'm going to put it in the middle, the left justified. I'm going to put no fill on it. I'm going to put no outline on it. And then what I want to do is I want to give it a specific name on this so that we can refer to that. We're going to call it, let's call it sample ID field. So we can refer to that inside the code. This is our sample ID field. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to take this sample ID field. I want to duplicate it based on the label or based on the value. And then I'm going to place it just anywhere in here. The location is not as important because then I'll move it down accordingly. So let's write a macro to do just that. Back into the VBA, and I'm going to create a brand new module here. It's going to call it, because we have a different macros to add in. So I'm going to insert module. We're going to call this student and then ID card. So let's go ahead in the properties here, student, because it's based on the student, of course, and then ID card max. And make sure the name of your module is never the same of any macro. So the first macro that I want to write basically is something that maybe we just write maybe one time. It's not going to be something that's that common. We may convert it to something else, but here, this at least the initial. So we're going to do create a macro called sub, and we'll just call it student ID, call create fields. Create fields. The name is not so important. Once we have that, we need to dimension something. Well, I want the field row. I want to loop through those field rows. So field row as long, and I also need to know the last row, because this way administrators we have a few fields, they can add their own things in as well, which is kind of nice. We've got additional fields, they can add what they like in. Okay, so we want to know the last row as long. Also, I want to dimension the shape, dimension the field shape. We're going to be working with the shape, so field shape as shape. And then also I want to create that new, but now but actually these dimensions, I'm going to create it for a few different macros so we can use them. So I'm going to put them up here so we can use them for different macros. So that way we don't have to recreate them. Okay, so inside this macros, with students, we're focused on the student sheet. So that's the sheet we're going to be working on. I needed to get the last row. The last row is going to be equal to, and what's going to be probably 120. So if we take a look at the sheet here, we're going to see the last one, probably 120 is the last possible. So I'm going to be basing it on F. So let's write that in, the last row based on F120. So we can change this because I want to loop through all the ones that users have added a value, F120. That's going to get us our last row. So we can now loop through that. So for the field row is equal to, again, starting off, where are we starting off? I'm going to start right on here. Let's go to here. Going to stay at 101. That's what we're starting off on, 101. So I want to loop from 101 all the way down to 120, or the last one, whichever is first. Okay, so 101 to the last row, and then we're going to close our loop. Next field row. Inside that loop, we're going to do a few things. Now, the first option is, when we get to the front, is a picture. So we need to handle the picture very differently than we handle the other ones, because the other ones are just fields. So we're going to focus on the picture. So if I want to make an if statement, if we're at 101, so if the field row is equal to 101 and dot range E101. I want to make sure that there actually is a value. Let's bring this down again. We don't need this so much space, and bring this back up. We're finished formatting for a bit. And I want to make sure that E contains, actually we want to make sure, let's put in the value only, right? I don't want the word picture, but I do want this. So I want to make sure that it contains values only in this case. So I want to make sure that E101 equals, or let's just say does not equal none. I think that's better. And value does not equal none. Then we want to put in the picture none. Then I want to see, does the picture exist or not, right? If it exists, we don't need to create it, right? So let's take a look at that. We're going to give it a specific name. So on error, resume next. If it doesn't exist, it'll create an error. So we can set the field shape equal to dot shapes, and then ID card picture value, just call picture value. Okay, then on air goes to 0. Okay, because if it does, but also what I want to do, actually, I want to make sure that we set initially, make sure that that field shape is nothing. So just gonna add that in just initially. I want to make sure it's nothing. So set, because we're going to use it for multiple macros. So set the field row equal to nothing, just to make sure that's nothing. And then we'll set it to nothing a few times as we loop through it. Okay, we're checking for a field shape. So now if the field shape here, we've set it already, we're testing to see if it is nothing, that means we need to create it. Is nothing, then create it. Else, and if. So name it, then we're going to create it. So actually in this one, we don't need an else because all we're going to do is create it. Assuming if it's already created, I don't really need to move it or position it. It's fine. So all I want to do is just create it. So, but I do want to check to make sure that we have the correct path. We've got to make sure that this path is going to change as we develop it, right? I'm going to take this picture and I'm going to put it in a specific student folder. So keep in mind that the code will change slightly as we build out this application. What we're going to be doing, for example, in something like this, is we're going to make sure in K19, it's actually K19, it's going to be separated. We're going to have the file name and then the path we're going to build based on the user's location. So keep that in mind. That'll change slightly, okay, based on the folder, but we'll get to that. But at least we can get the ID card functioning, at least this part. Okay, so because we can't do everything in the same time. So if I'm going to check to make sure the path is correct. Directory, again, dot range, what is it? We're looking for, I guess, G101. We want to make sure G101 dot value VB directory does not equal empty. We want to make sure it's got a correct path, then continue on. Then we can insert the picture. So then dot pictures, we've done this before, pictures with the dot insert. And what is that? What is that? It's exactly whatever's in G101. So all we need is just copy that here and paste that in here. That's what we're going to be inserting. We want to give it a name on that, don't we? So dot name. And it's the same name that we have already here. So we just need to copy and paste that in, and dot name is going to be equal, not names, equal there, the ID card. So now we've created it and now we've entered it. So now all we need to do is work with that shape. So now let's go ahead. And so with dot shapes, that shape here, that's the one we're focused on. What are we going to do with it? Make sure we got the end with. Well, first I want to set the left position. The left position is going to be basically, we'll just set a specific left position. Now it's because we're going to move it, so it's okay. Left position equals students, and then dot range, in this case K104, just set it a specific range, dot left. And then we'll do the same thing with the top position. So I'm just going to copy this here, set the top position as well. Dot top is equal to dot top. Okay. All right. So now we've got the top and the left. Now we just need to know what I want to do is I want to lock the aspect ratio. That's very important. I don't want it off. Log aspect ratio equals true, just like as we did with the icons. And then I'm going to set the width. If the dot width is greater than, let's see, the height, dot height, then we're going to set the width. Then dot width is, let's just say we're going to equal to maybe 50. Else we're going to set the height. The height, what's going to be dot height? Let's just set the height to something the same too. We can adjust that accordingly. It's no problem. Okay, so we're basically just creating those fields here. Okay, the last thing I want to do is just make sure that that picture is visible. It should be if we've inserted it, but just to double check, dot visible equals MSO true. Okay, so now we've got it there, and then end with, we'll bring it up. We can close our loop. We don't need these extra spaces here, and we're going to clean it up. Okay, so now that we've entered our picture, we've covered the picture, but that's only if for this. But what about the other fields? Well, the other fields, I want to either enter the field label and the field value, or maybe just the field value. So we're going to need to check on that so we can continue on. That's going to take care of the picture. And then let's just make sure we've got all, I think we've got one too many end widths, don't we? Looks like we do. Okay, let's double check that. Okay, make sure that we can clean up our code, make sure it's readable and understandable. We've got 3 end ifs here, so we want to make sure that we have 3 if statements. We've got an if here, we've got an if here, and we've got an if right up here. So we've got all of them. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. That looks good. Okay, so continuing on, now what I want to do is I want to add in the field labels. So let's just add in that. So dot, let's just run that code to see what it looks like here. Run that code. Take a look. Okay, perfect. That's what I want. Nice. So we got the anywhere, you know, the fine. Okay, so we got the picture here. I really should add a student picture here to make it look proper, because otherwise it's going to be some kind of weird ID card with a beach house there. I happen to like beach houses, but that's another story. Okay, so let's go ahead and add in the school manager. I think we have pictures in part 3, so I'm going to put in part 1. We added some pictures in, didn't we? There we go. Okay, pick some. There we go. I like this guy. Okay, so now we have it, so we can delete this. Okay, so we know the first part's running right. Let's continue on with this, our code. Okay, so now what about the field labels? So let's do that. So continuing on, dot field labels. All right, we need to add in those things. So first of all, we want to make sure, again, I'm going to set that field shape. We're using the same one, so I want to make sure that it's set to nothing. So I'm going to copy this just to make sure and continue on. So first set that to nothing. Now what I want to do, if dot range E, remember, I want to show the labels, but I only want to show these labels if they've set it to labels and values. Only in this condition, only if E contains labels and values, then and only then do I want to show the label. So if dot range E, and of course our field row dot value equals, of course, paste that in, then we want to add in. So then we want to add in those specific labels. So again, I want to check, does that shape exist? Again, I'm going to copy this here. We've already done this, but I just need to change the text. It's going to be slightly different. So on here, this particular shape, what we're going to call this, I'm going to call this ID card label. And then I want to give it a unique name, label and what? Label and the field row, and the field row. So it's very distinct. Does it exist or not? So if the field is nothing, if, again, we can just copy it up here because we've already created that. So it's a little bit quicker. If field shape is nothing, then create it. There. And then end if. Make sure we always add in the end if, so it makes it easier if you do it right away. Okay, so now we've got that. So if it's nothing, then we need to create it. So let's add in. So all we need to do, again, is take our sample shape here and duplicate it and assign a name. This specific sample, it's kind of hard to see. I should put a border around it, but it's here. We can put some test label, okay? Because that's good. We got some text in there. At least we know it exists. Otherwise, it's kind of hidden. So text label. So what I want to do is I want to take this sample field, ID field, and I want to duplicate it, and then I want to assign a name to that shape. So that's what we're going to do inside VBA. Okay, so dot shapes. What is that shape? Sample field ID dot duplicate dot name. What is the name that I'm going to assign? It's this name right here, ID card and field row. So I'm going to copy this, equals. So now that we can work with it, now with dot shapes, this, again, we can paste it in here. Now we can work with it. Okay, so what do we want to do with it? No end quote there. We don't need that. Okay, so now what we can do is we can assign the left position, all that we want to do. So with field row, first of all, I want to assign a formula to it, right? Because I want it to link whatever is in here, whatever's in F, I want it to show up. That way, if we change the label, it changes in there. So let's assign a formula, and that formula is going to be based on whatever's located in F. So how do we assign a formula to a shape so that it's linked? We do it like this. Dot drawing object, it's not going to come up on IntelliSense, drawing object dot formula, make sure I spell the right, drawing object dot formula, exactly, equals, and then we put in parentheses, equal, quotation marks, equals, and then absolute F, and then absolute, and what is it? The field row, the row that we're from, and the field row. That is going to be our formula. So it's going to link it automatically to what's in there. Okay, so now we can put in the left position. Where do we want the left position? We can put it anywhere, and then we're going to move it around. We'll just put it in somewhere in column I. Let's say we'll put it column I in the row, whatever row it is, we'll put it in, and then we'll go ahead and move them around. So putting that inside here, let's add it in. So dot left equals, again, we need to call out the sheet, students, call out the sheet here, students, because we're inside the dot with range I and the field row dot left. That's going to be our left position. And then the top is going to be very, very similar. So let's just copy and paste all that and then update it towards dot top, right? So that's all we want. Instead of dot left, in this case, it's going to be top here and top there. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. We're going to move it around, so it's no problem. And then the last thing is I want to make sure it's visible. So dot visible equals MSO true. Okay, so that's going to place our labels accordingly. Good. Now all we need to do, and it's also going to link them to whatever's in the cell. So perfect. So we're good with that. So now all we need to do is just run our end ifs, make sure we have end with and then end if. We don't need to end with. That's covered there. And end if and end if. Okay, cleaning that up a little bit. Two end ifs. Again, checking our end ifs. If we have that, and if nothing, we have two ifs. Now we have two end ifs. Perfect. Okay, so now we've done the field labels, but now we want to do the field values. Dot field values. Then we're done. Okay, so what are the field values? So again, I want to check in to make sure that it's labels of values. If E equals fields and values, this case, we want to make sure we also put in the values, right? So we have to make sure that it's going to be either values only or labels and values. Either one of those, we're going to put in the values here. So in this case, I want to put in the value only. But if it's either one of these options, so basically it cannot be none. So anything but none, we're going to put in it. So all we do is need to check for anything but none. So let's do that inside the code here. If, again, dot range E, and we're still on that row, the field row, and the field row does not equal none, then we can add it in. Okay, then we can go ahead and add in that shape. Again, we're going to check to make sure it exists. Okay, so this all I'm going to do is then I'm going to copy all of this here, pretty much copy everything here. Then we could just actually paste it in. So there we go. Copy that, and then I'm going to paste it in here. So make sure we have two end ifs here, and also if here and if here. We got two ifs. Okay, but this one I'm not calling the label. I'm going to call it the value. ID card value. I want it to be called value, so we're going to focus on that value. Next up, again, changing it here also to value, so that they're differentiated. And also here, the third place, value. And also the formula is not going to be based on column F. It's going to be based on the values located here in column G. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's change it to column G. So G is where we're going to be located. Field row G, ID card value, the field row G, I, and I'm going to put the value a little bit further. I don't want them on top of each other in the same place. Plus, let's just put in plus 50. Okay, so that they're going to be more to the right than the other one. Okay. All right, so we've got the top, we've got the visible. Let's double check value. We're checking to see if it's value. If not, we're duplicating the sample field. We're going to create a name called ID card value. We're going to focus on that. Formula is going to be equal to G in the field row. We're setting it to the left position of I, true. Okay, and then also what I want to do is I want to make sure that we're setting this to nothing. Again, also after each one, I want to set it to nothing. Okay, and if. Okay, good. That's going to loop us out. Let's take a look at that and see how that works. Again, saving our work before running anything else. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that macro. We don't have a button attached to that yet, so we just need to run that macro, see if there's any issues. Okay, good. That's what I like. So now what we can do is we can really line things up. Okay, so we've got everything. Like I said, the location doesn't matter. So admission date, now we can just kind of choose where we want to put it. We'll put the birth date. I'm going to hold down that and bring it down. Then what I want to do is I got two student IDs, which is what I want. So bringing that here, student ID, we'll put that. I'm going to put one of these. So here, I want to put the barcode. That barcode is located on 106. So we look at this name. This name is 106. So the barcode I'm going to put on the back of that here. I'm going to change that. It's not going to be much of a barcode because it's only one, but it won't look like much. Student ID, we have it here. I'll put that down here under there. And what I'll do is I'm going to right justify that one. This one here, I'm going to bring it down because we're going to be using it a little bit. Right justify that one here. And then I'm going to make sure I got the right one. This is the one I want to right justify. This is the one I want to left justify, this student ID. This is 105, and I'm going to shorten this up. So now we just kind of work with it and bring it here, and then I'm going to hold down the control. I'm going to line those up. Okay, so now we got the student. This is the grade level that we have on here. I could have used the grade. The grade level, we could have probably put in that values. I guess I should have put in labels and values, but okay, second grade. That's fine. And then we can run it again too. Actually, let's run it again. Now we're going to run it again, but it's going to be created. So let's do that. Let's do grade level, labels and values. I'm going to run that macro again. It's going to create something just for grade. So it's going to be very easy. Just run it again. Now there we go. Now I got the grade level. See, everything else worked out. Everything else was already existent, so it didn't change anything. Grade level second. I'm going to put that right here again. I'm going to right justify that here. I'm going to put in that grade level down here, bringing that smaller here. Okay, good. I mean, any way you want. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to save it. Don't think we're going to get to that this week, but Main Street, the address we're going to be here. Fred, here we've got basically this is the first name. Again, right justify that, last name, left justify that, which then I can bring that first name in here. And so that way we get the first name and the last name all lined up accordingly. Perfect. Okay, so bring this over a little bit. Nice. So now we also have a full name. We can use the full name. We're using that too. Put in the address here, California here, 90323, Los Angeles. And then, okay, what else we got here? That looks pretty good. I want to make this a barcode. How do we do that? And also make it bigger too. So I'm going to change the font on this one. I'm going to call this code 128. If you don't have code 128, you're going to let. Now, of course, as that grows, like let's say if the ID was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Obviously, it would grow a lot more. You see that? But let's make it bigger. Okay, I like that. So we got a barcode font. So the longer the number, let's go back to that. Okay. And notice it called out because it thought it was a different employee, so that's why it triggered that, which is good. That's working well. So we got the barcode here, different student, not employee. Admission date here, good. We got the birth date here. Those look good together there. And then we got the address here. I'm going to bring that out. It might be a longer address. Put the city here, also longer. Okay, so we have the zip code. We've got everything just the way we like it here. And now what we're going to do probably in the next training is I'm going to show you in the next training exactly how to save these, all the information. We got something up here too. We don't need that. That we can delete there. I don't need the value of that. I just need the picture of that, so we can delete that. Okay, so we got something up here. What do we have here? Let's see. Oh, we don't need any of that. That's get rid of that. We don't need those. Get rid of those. I'm going to just use my selection tool, highlight those. We don't need those. Okay, perfect. That's the way I like it. All right, so now we've got a nice ID card here. We can even put a border around that to make it look a little bit professional. So we can do a picture border, the same color, and then we can increase the width of that if we like. Okay, so that looks really nice. We got a little bit of an ID card there going on. We've got that, and we've created those dynamically. Very, very cool. We've done an awesome training. In the next training, I've got more fields over here. All the way. Holy cow, look at that. We'll update those. Those are not important. Let's just use my selection tool, get rid of those, highlighting those. We don't need all of that. We have all the fields we want to here. Okay, but we only really need to run that macro once. Once we have the fields where we want to, what I want to do is I want to save exactly their location. I want to save the font. I want to save everything about this inside a database. In the next training, week 5, I'm going to show you how to do that and a whole lot more. We're all out of time this week. Thanks so much. I'm glad you stuck around till the end. Thank you. Don't forget, we have our 175 workbook zip file. That's just $66, 175 of my best applications. Tons of people are loving that and creating their own applications. That would help us out a lot. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.